I just received a story that shook me to my core. I had to sit down, take a breath, and reread it twice before I could believe what I was seeing. It's from a woman named Lauren, and what she discovered in her grandparents' attic changed everything. She thought she knew about her family. I'm Brenda, and this is one of those stories that reminds us the truth doesn't stay buried forever. Lauren wrote to me after cleaning out her grandparents' house in Vermont, a cozy old place filled with creaky floors and the smell of history in the air. Her grandmother had passed away 2 months earlier, and it was finally time to sort through the attic, a place no one in the family ever really entered. It had always been off limits, a mystery in itself. She was up there alone one rainy afternoon, moving dusty boxes and old furniture, when she noticed something strange in the far corner. Tucked behind an old chest of drawers was a locked wooden trunk, heavy and carved with initials she didn't recognize. No one had ever mentioned it. No one even seemed to know it existed. The lock was rusted, but Lauren managed to pry it open using an old screwdriver. Inside, she found neatly folded clothes, letters tied in faded ribbon, and several photographs, none of which featured anyone she recognized. And at the bottom of the trunk, wrapped in cloth, was a thick envelope with her grandmother's handwriting addressed to someone named Her heart was pounding. Why would her grandmother hide something like this? And who is M? Lauren sat down right there on the attic floor and opened the envelope. The letter began with the words, "To my dearest M, I never meant for you to find out this way." Lauren felt her stomach twist. Her grandmother had always been the pillar of the family, calm, religious, and traditional. The kind of woman who baked cookies every Sunday and had the cleanest kitchen you'd ever seen. But this letter was from another version of her. Someone hidden dot as she read further. The tone of the letter shifted from affectionate to apologetic. Her grandmother confessed to having a child before she married Lauren's grandfather, something no one in the family had ever heard about. Child, a boy, had been born in 1952 and placed for adoption shortly after birth. His name was Michael. Could me Michael? Lauren felt like the attic was spinning. She had always assumed her family tree was complete, simple, even. Her grandparents were married for over 50 years. They had 2 daughters, one of whom was Lauren's mother. But this letter changed everything. There was someone else out there, someone who shared her blood. The photographs suddenly made more sense. Several of them were of a young woman, clearly her grandmother, and a man she didn't recognize. They looked young, maybe in their 20s. In one photo, the man had his arm around her grandmother, and Lauren's mind was racing. She couldn't ignore the wave of questions crashing over her. Who was Michael? Was he still alive? Did he even know he had been adopted? Did anyone else in the family know about him? She felt the weight of a secret that had been hidden for over 70 years. Resting squarely on her shoulders, she took the items from the box and carefully laid them out on the floor. The hospital bracelet read, "Baby Boy Sullivan, January 23rd, 1952. The adoption agency was a now defunct Catholic organization located 2 towns over. Lauren's hands trembled as she opened a second envelope tucked between the brochure pages. It was a letter addressed to the one who finds this. The letter was more of a plea than a confession. Her grandmother wrote that she had spent her life wondering if her son was happy, if he had found a family who loved him, if he ever felt the echo of her love despite the distance. "I prayed for you every night," the letter read, "and I hope that one day you or someone with your name will forgive me for the silence." Lauren felt tears burning behind her eyes. This wasn't just a family scandal, this was heartbreak, wrapped in decades of shame and silence. Her grandmother had carried this grief privately, showing the world a composed smile while silently grieving the absence of her firstborn child. That night, Lauren couldn't sleep. She sat in her living room, Lauren woke up early the next morning, her mind still tangled in the mystery. She felt a strange sense of urgency, as if the truth had waited long enough and was finally ready to be found. She called in sick to work and dedicated the entire day to her search. She started by contacting a local genealogy group that specialized in adoption reunions. The woman who answered the phone, Marlene, was kind and immediately intrigued by Lauren's story. "You'd be surprised how many families hold secrets like this," she said. "But paper trails always tell the truth if you know where to look." Lauren emailed photos of the hospital bracelet, the adoption pamphlet, and the handwritten letter. Within an hour, Marlene called back. There was a Michael Sullivan born on that exact date at St. Bridget's Hospital, she said. And ... he was adopted 2 weeks later. But what's strange is his name wasn't changed. That almost never happens. Lauren's heart skipped. That meant there was a Michael Sullivan out there, maybe using the same name his birth mother gave him. Marlene gave Lauren a few potential leads. One Michael had lived just 30 miles away until recently. Another was listed as deceased. A third appeared in a newspaper article from 2018, interviewed for a veterans memorial. Lauren stared at the photo in the article, the man's eyes, the shape of his nose. He looked ... familiar. There was something about him that reminded her of family portraits she had seen 1,000 times. The drive to Edgefield felt longer than it should have. Every mile brought a new question, a new wave of doubt. What if he didn't want to be found? What if he had a new family who didn't know? What if he wasn't the right man at all? Lauren's hands gripped the steering wheel tighter as she pulled into the small, quiet neighborhood lined with modest homes and aging oak trees. She parked across the street from the address Marlene gave her, a 1-story brick house with green shutters and a wind chime on the porch. Everything about it seemed ordinary, peaceful even. But for Lauren, it might as well have been a portal to another world, a world where secrets buried decades ago were about to rise. After a few deep breaths, she stepped out of the car and walked up the path. Her heart pounded as she raised her hand to knock, but before she could, the door opened. A man in his 70s stood there, tall, with silver hair and eyes that mirrored her grandmother's. He looked surprised but not alarmed. "Can I help?" "You?" he asked politely. Lauren froze. All the words she rehearsed vanished. She handed him the article clipping instead, her fingers trembling. "Are you ... Michael Sullivan?" He looked at the photo and chuckled softly. "That's me. Vietnam. Veteran peace. Haven't seen this in years." He looked back at her, confused now. "Why are you here, miss?" She swallowed hard. The woman who stepped onto the porch looked to be in her 40s, with auburn hair pulled into a bun and a towel slung over one shoulder. Her curious gaze moved between Lauren and Michael. "Hi," she said with cautious warmth. "I'm Jenna. Everything all right, Dad?" Michael turned to her slowly, still processing. "Jenna, this is Lauren. She says she's Ruth Sullivan's granddaughter." The moment the name was spoken again, Jenna's eyebrows shot up, confusion swirling in her expression. "Wait, Ruth. Sullivan, I thought your birth mother was anonymous." "I did too," Michael replied, his voice quiet, almost reverent. "But Lauren found letters. She thinks Ruth kept track of me. All these years." Jenna took a hesitant step forward, then offered Lauren a smile. "You'd better come in. Sounds like we all have a lot to talk about." Inside the house, everything felt unexpectedly familiar. Family photos, the smell of old wood and linen cleaner, the warmth of a home lived in with love. Lauren sat across from Michael at the kitchen table, a worn notebook of letters in her lap. She passed it to him, and he opened it like a sacred relic. His eyes moved over the words, his fingers tracing the ink. "She wrote about me. She wondered where I was. She never forgot." His voice. Jenna brought out a tray with tea and cookies, her hands slightly trembling. "I always wondered why Dad never wanted to search for his birth family," she said gently. "He used to say it would feel like betrayal, but this changes everything." Lauren smiled softly. "I felt the same when I started digging. I thought I was chasing a ghost. But instead, I found family." Michael looked up from the letters again. "I always felt this hole in my life. Not sadness, exactly more. Unfinished pages in a book." He looked at Lauren. "You just gave me the missing chapters." That sentiment landed heavily on Jenna. She reached across the table and gently squeezed. Lauren's hand died as the afternoon faded into evening. The three of them sat in a warm hush, interrupted only by occasional laughter or sniffles. Lauren pulled a small photograph from her purse. It was Ruth, younger, holding a baby in her arms. Michael held it as if it were a mirror. "That's me," he whispered. "I can feel it." Jenna leaned forward. "We should visit her grave." "Maybe say what you need to say." Michael nodded slowly. "I think I'm ready now." Lauren's heart thudded in her chest. This moment, this reconnection, was so much more than she'd imagined when she... A few days later, Jenna drove Lauren and Michael to the cemetery where Ruth was buried. The sun was low in the sky, casting a golden hue across the headstones. As they approached Ruth's grave, Michael slowed his steps. He looked nervous, like a man about to speak with someone he never thought he'd meet. The headstone was modest. Just her name, dates, and the inscription, "Forever Loved." Michael knelt down beside it, placing his hand on the stone. He was silent for a long time. Then quietly he said, "Hi, Mom... I didn't know how much I missed you until I knew you existed." Lauren stepped back to give him space. She could see Jenna wipe away a tear beside her. The wind whispered through the trees as if nature itself was bearing witness to the moment. Michael pulled out one of the letters Ruth had written and read it aloud, his voice catching at every line. When he finished, he gently placed the letter under a small stone on her grave. "You wrote to me," he said, "and I heard you. I'm here." The silence that followed felt sacred. For the first time, Lauren saw Michael truly at peace. He looked lighter, like he'd just laid down a burden he'd carried for decades. Jenna knelt beside him and wrapped an arm around his shoulders. Back at home, something shifted. Michael began joining Lauren for family dinners more often. He laughed more. He lingered longer after meals, sometimes telling stories about his childhood or what little he remembered of it. Lauren noticed how his eyes no longer held that distant, haunted look. The weight of the unknown had lifted one night. While Jenna and Lauren cleared the table, Michael stayed behind with the kids. Through the kitchen doorway, they watched him playing cards with them, laughing when he lost, teasing when he won. It was a simple scene, but it filled Lauren's chest with something indescribable. This was healing. This was family being rebuilt. Jenna leaned in close and whispered, "Thank you." Lauren turned to her, confused. "For what?" Jenna smiled, her eyes wet. "For being the reason he found peace. For going with him. For helping him find the truth. I think it saved him." Lauren didn't know what to say. She simply nodded, overcome with emotion. Later that evening, Michael approached Lauren with something in his hand. It was a photo worn faded, but unmistakable. "Ruth, holding a baby. I want you to keep this," he said. "You're the reason I have it. You're the reason I met her, even if it was only through her words." Months passed, and life settled into a rhythm that felt right. Michael began volunteering at a local shelter for children in foster care. He never spoke about why, but Lauren knew. Every time he knelt to tie a kid's shoes or handed out books, he was honoring the little boy he used to be and the woman who had loved him in silence. Jenna noticed it too. Their relationship, once strained by Michael's inner struggles, blossomed into something tender and real. They went on walks, planned family outings, and even talked about renewing their vows. For the first time, Jenna felt like she wasn't married to a shadow, but to a whole man who had made peace with his past. Lauren continued to write, inspired by the journey they had all taken. She turned Ruth's story into a novel, fictionalized, of course, but every emotion was real. When she gave Michael the first printed copy, he held it like a sacred object, his hands trembling. "You gave her a voice," he said, eyes glassy. "You gave her the ending she deserved." The book gained attention more than Lauren expected. People reached out, saying it helped them confront their own family secrets, their own buried truths. It became more than just a story. It became a mirror for others to see themselves in. One evening, as Lauren walked past her bookshelf, she paused by the photo of Ruth. "You changed everything,"